Is here again, and this is a micro lecture that I'm going to be hosting for you. And there are two things that we're going to be going over in this micro lecture for this week. Before I get started with that, I want to let you know that this is a PowerPoint that I've created for this assignment, for this micro lecture, and you can find it in this week's module alongside the other activities and stuff that we have. So without further ado, let's get started. So there are going to be two things I'm going to be going over today. The first is the APA format, and the second is an annotated bibliography. Um, if you haven't used APA format before, I'll give you a brief overview of what that looks like, and I will provide some resources that you should use in order to help you finalize your annotated bibliography. Of course, the second part of this is going to be the annotated bibliography itself, and I can show you what that looks like. So without further ado, let's get started. So, what is an annotated bibliography? In this case, right, an annotated bibliography does three things. It summarizes the text that you read, it assesses the source, and I have a couple of guiding questions here that you can answer when you assess that source. Is the source useful? Does the author have any concerns or questions that they don't address? Is the source reliable? So on and so forth. Finally, it reflects on the source. So in your reflection, you want to answer some of those guiding questions that I have right here. Is this a source that you can or will use in your paper? Why or why not? And did this source help you in your writing and research process? So with the APA format, I'm going to briefly provide an overview of what I expect to see for that and some examples of this. However, I'm always going to recommend that you check out the Purdue OWL website. This is something that I've talked about this semester, and I'm going to continue to reiterate the importance of the Purdue OWL website. And it will tell you how to cite books, journal articles, videos, so on and so forth. And there are key differences between APA and MLA, so make sure that you follow the APA format. Currently, we are in the seventh edition of the APA format. It's been implemented since October 2019. And when an eighth edition of the APA format is made available, I will update this video and mention how to cite in the eighth edition of the APA format. So for books, here's how you cite books in an APA format. You're going to put the author's last name and their initials, and then you're going to put the year of publication right over in parentheses. Now, because it's a book, it's considered a major work, and so we cite major works with italics. And then finally, you're going to put the publisher's name and the DOI. And think of the DOI as think of the DOI as basically like a digital identifier. I think it's officially the digital object identifier. And sometimes they have these in the source and sometimes they don't list them. And if they don't list them, don't worry too much about that. Just get all the other information that you will need. So I provided one example right here of a source from A.B. Smith. You can see there's the last name, there are the initials, the year of publication. I just came up with a very sample title right here. And if it happens to be a colon, then you're going to put a capital letter right here just after the colon, and then make everything else lowercase if you notice. And then finally, I just gave an example, the ABC Publishing Company, right? You would go by and modify this for your own purposes. So when we get to electronic sources, this is what it looks like for a web page. There's the person's last name, their initials, and here is the year, month, and date that it was published online. We have that title again in italics, right? And if there is a colon, then we go by and we capitalize the first letter and we make everything else lowercase. And then you're going to put the name of the website. So in this case, I just chose NBC as an example right here, and then the name of the URL as well. And again, if there's any missing information, just please include as much information as you can find. Sometimes it requires having to look for a source more than once in order to find that information. So for example, maybe you're on one website, but they don't list all this information, but you look up that article again on a second website, maybe through a search engine, and then you're able to find more information and you're able to piece it together. If you need to do that, then feel free to do so. So we are now getting into the scholarly journal articles. As you can see, they look a little bit different. Last name, initials, the year published. We have all that information that is the same right there with the title, but you'll notice that the title is not italicized. And the reason why is because these articles are published in bigger scholarly journals, and so we italicize the actual journal name itself. So one example of that would be the composition journal. You notice how that is italicized right there. And they offer both volume and issue numbers. So this is information that would be found directly on a scholarly source. So for example, volume 2, issue number 13. If there's a page range, right, then you're going to go by and include that as well. And again, because these are like anthologies, these are major works that have a compilation of various authors and scholarly writers. This is information that should be readily accessible, likely at the top of the page or at the bottom. And then finally, we're going to go back to that DOI again, right? It's essentially like a series, almost looks like a URL, looks like a series of numbers. And this is a sort of permanent number that gets assigned to the article. Because let's just say 20 years from now, they go by and they publish on a different website. Well, with the DOI, you can find that particular link to that article much easier than you could if it were just the name of a URL. So that's the reason why we go with DOIs, and we prefer not to go with URLs. But again, right, if there is no information and no DOI, you just go by and avoid that. A couple of other key pieces of information. The Purdue OWL is a fantastic source, and I will be able to show you a little bit what that looks like. So it's a source I would recommend checking out. I am providing just a quick sample right here of what an annotated bibliography could look like. So usually you want it to be between 1 and 3 paragraphs. My recommendation, it'd be better to go with 3 small paragraphs because it gives you the chance to go by and break it down. So I'm just giving you an example of the first paragraph, right, as you can see right here. It summarizes what you read, and it makes sure to cover some of the important points that are discussed in their work, and you're writing just enough so that the reader gets the gist of what happened, and you're not bogging them down with unnecessary details and information. So if there's any major conclusions that they reach, if there's any you briefly just overview the study, right? Who was studied, what was studied, where, right? What major findings did they use? What sort of research methods did they use? Those are the types of things you want to just provide for your reader. And again, feel free to cite things as well in your annotated bibliography. The second paragraph, you could sort of continue off with that idea, and you want to focus on whether or not the source was useful. Were there concerns that the author didn't address, or do you think their analysis and their findings and their conclusions were pretty reasonable? Why or why not? And then finally, we want to get to the end right there. Now that you've critiqued and analyzed their work, I want you to focus on how this work will help you write your essay. Is this a source that can benefit you? Is this a source that you plan on using in your paper? Why or why not? Provide a very brief overview of that. Now, I'm going to show you a very quick example of what this looks like on the Purdue OWL. So as you can see right here, the Purdue OWL's website, which is right over here, they're an authority on citations and research, so it's something that I'd recommend you look into. They offer an MLA example right here from the author Anne Lamott, but the one I want you to focus on is the APA example right here. You can see right here that they have cited a book, and I can tell because there's the initials, the last name, the year it was published. This is the name of the book in italics, and remember, because it is a major work, it gets italics. And then finally, that's the name of the publisher right there. And as you can see right there, they go with 2 paragraphs, right? I'll just let you quickly read that just for a minute. As you can see right here, they provide an overview in the first paragraph. And then as we get to the second one, right, they start to offer their own critiques and stuff of the work. But you notice, right, they keep it in the third person. This is a good thing to do, right? And so this maintains a sense of objectivity as well. And this just provides for you a quick example of what this looks like. And so this right here covers the mini lecture on what an APA annotated bibliography looks like. And this information will be made available in this week's module. So feel free to check this out. Check out the PowerPoint that I have posted. Check out this video. and I look forward to reading everyone's annotated bibliography. And feel free to ask if you have any questions. Thank you, and have a nice day.